Hey everyone, welcome to Straight Up Startups. It is Tuesday, November 22nd. We are so happy to have you joining us. It's an exciting day. As you can tell, I'm repping my Sounders gear real hard today. We got Sounders playoff match. Nick, I'm sorry. Joining me like always is my friend Nick Hughes. Nick, how you doing? You excited for the match tonight?
Damn right, man. I got blue behind me, so
Woo!
that's a start. Yeah, it's exciting. We're hoping for great performance game one, so we go into the next game with a solid lead, and hopefully we're hosting the MLS Cup here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, definitely go Montreal. We're hoping for them to get a win too. And yeah, the energy around the city's great right now. I mean, people are kind of starting. I think the Sounders, especially over the summer, we were doing so bad that everyone kind of jumped off the bandwagon a little bit. But now it's starting to catch back up, and I think it's nice to see the city glowing for the Sounders and not just the Seahawks. And just kind of as momentum goes, I'm really hoping if we host that MLS playoff game, it's going to be real big for the city. I'm really stoked. But yeah, that's in a couple hours. Let's talk about technology and everything. So to give you guys a little bit rundown what we're going to be talking about, we're talking about co-working spaces, talking about possibilities of going public. We're going to talk a little bit about the election, which is something we've stayed away from, some live streaming. I know last week we talked about unicorns. We're going to talk about something better than unicorns. And we're going to talk about the future of native apps. I think that's kind of a big one. And then at the end, I know that we have some exciting news from Nick that he's excited to share with you. So Nick, let's jump to the first one. So the first one comes from an article from GeekWire. And it's about a new co-working space that we have here in Seattle called Atlas Workbase. And what their whole goal is to challenge WeWork. Everyone knows about WeWork. You know, they've got like 128 different locations now across 36 different cities internationally. Now, it's a big real estate play for them, right? They've got the living with the co-working, which is really interesting. And so Atlas was started by Bill Sector, I believe is his name, and he had over 7 million miles of traveling experience. So he's very familiar with the space and having to find, decent Wi-Fi when you're traveling all over. And so, Nick, I want to ask from you, I don't know if you've seen the space yet because I know it's brand new, but do you think that the whole co-working space in that industry is overcrowded? Is there enough space for more co-working space?
I like the way you said that. Yeah, I think it's getting there. I think it's becoming a little saturated in the sense that, first of all, there's only so much square footage and space, especially a city like Seattle can actually handle. And, if you're looking at, expanding to many different cities around the country and the world, such as what WeWork has done, it's a real estate play. It's not cheap. It's very expensive. Your customer. So when you're thinking about a co-working space, you're providing an area for companies or solo entrepreneurs, or even remote workers. Someone that's traveling to actually rent out space to work. And there's a limit to how many individuals or companies are going to pursue this direction in terms of an office. There's also a limit to how many traveling employees are going to actually choose to, a lot because the price point. And the price point is actually, I mean, when you compare it to $3, $5, $7, $10,000 a month for an office space, if you're like a 5 to 10 person company, yeah, renting out. Well, depending on how many people you have at these co-working spaces will depend on what your monthly bill is for this space, and it can become pretty expensive. So that's one. Two, the life cycle of early stage startups can be pretty short. So they cycle through 6 months to a year. They might fail and be done. So now we're looking at essentially lifetime value of customers less than a year. So the sales cycle of trying to get more companies and bodies in the seats is a challenge. So I guess all this to say that I think you're going to see the larger, well-established players like WeWork, like Galvanize. There's a number of different ones opening up that are already in this space. They're going to own it. And I unfortunately have a doubt that Atlas is going to actually succeed. We'll see. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you a lot, and I like what you said about price. I think price really is where the competition. There's competition is so heavy. There's so many. it's hard to differentiate yourself right now. And this article talks about Atlas. The space looks really cool, but that's kind of a given with any co-working space. You need to have an inviting, positive space to get people to feel comfortable and do the right work. But really, how do you differentiate yourself? Are you providing something more that these other spaces aren't? And what Atlas is saying is they have like a UPS in store or at the bottom. And and then these different co-working spaces. I didn't really think they're providing that much value. Like to say that you got UPS in the building is nothing that's going to change my mind. And so I think it all comes down to price. And as more or less like working independently, I look at all these prices and I'm just like, damn, like I don't have 12 grand a year to spend on co-working spaces or on an office at all. So when I see it could be $1,000 a month, makes me go like, I bet I could find a cheap apartment for $1,000 a month. And yeah, it doesn't come with some of the amenities, but I just think that's a little steep of an ask. And I saw there's like a $199 quarter time like visiting pass, but I just think the price is kind of it's a little bit of a stretch.
Well,
But it matches the market.
Here, look, I spent time at Surf Incubator when they were, just opened in Seattle. I spent, I'm now at WeWork, and I'm in Seattle. What I've noticed is it's great for the individuals, but I think it's just the business model is not solid. And unfortunately, they're looking at just a very short cycle of customer time, and the lifetime value of customers so short. It just takes a lot to get it continue like revenue.
Certainly. Yeah. So I'll go. You can finish.
I was just to say. So I think for the established companies, it's great, but I think it's a struggle for the up and coming ones.
Yeah, I agree, and the space is getting crowded. WeWork's going to at least be up there as top 5 at worst because they're so far ahead of the curve. They have so much real estate investment, and they already have that brand name. And I think it's going to be really hard for someone else to come in and provide more value in a different way. And it's not industry specific anymore. I think anyone who's looking for some type of office space is considering something like WeWork. I don't think that any of those spaces are really limited to an industry or a sector, and that's what they're saying in the article. I don't think that's necessarily true. And so, yeah, I don't think there's a lot of space left, and I could foresee a lot of these companies starting to struggle. But the remote working situation is changing. I think there's a lot of opportunity still internationally, give an opportunity for people to travel and jump from place to place. But I really like, if you're like that, I would love to get a WeWork membership where I could go international, any city I want, and work out of any office at any time. I just have to RSVP my desk. I think that would be a cool scenario, but there's just not enough people to carry this market that far, I don't think.
Exactly. So, hey, moving on. This topic comes from Fred Wilson, abc.com. He actually is writing about good founders go public. And I'll just throw it out to you, Connor, what you know about the industry. Do you think it's the right for every founder, and just the main thing is they should be
I don't think that should be the main goal for every single founder. I think sometimes you're setting goals that are a little too ambitious, and I know it's important to set goals that high and that big, but I think sometimes that's a pipe dream that's not achievable. I think it is more logical for a founder or someone starting a company to first be thinking about, can I create a lifestyle for myself that matches who I want to be, what I want to do, and be able to run the business and provide value before your kind of goal of going public. Just because the chance of success is so small, I think that it's a smarter option. And something that I'm trying to do with my personal brands is I want to create a brand that can sustain me, sustain my family, create a good lifestyle. Obviously, I'm working for a startup that eventually the goal is to go public and be a world-changing company and product. But it's a good goal, but I just don't think it's all that obtainable. But what he's saying here is, people are holding back. I think if you're at the point and you are close to going public, I say you go for it. That's just going to bring more to your brand. It's going to bring more stress, more problems. But I think if you can get to that phase where you're thinking, should we go public or should we not go public? I really do like what he said about you should do it, right? It's just going to bring more transparency to your company. It's going to help you grow. It's going to give you more notoriety. So I like that. But for the common founder, most of the people who are watching us, I would say, start with a little bit smaller obtainable goals first.
Great point. What I'm going to bring up is a slight counter to that, in the sense that I do agree where it's coming from, which basically going public is a result of the value created public. And the end result is essentially getting liquidation for the existing investors and the employees and the founders. And that allows the cycle to continue. And if you withhold going public, or you don't necessarily believe you should go public, what happens is the value of the product and the company stays within that small little group. And unfortunately, that doesn't expand our economy.
Yes.
And that's a problem, right? So I would encourage founders to think about how do they get liquidity out of their company for themselves as well as shareholders. And at some point, how do they grow to a large level that's impacting the economy? And I think when done right, public markets help that. But I don't think push just to go public, just to get billions of dollars is the right. So I think that that's where I think value. His message is pretty valuable.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And he's more in that space working with a lot of companies that are kind of on the verge of how should we, which direction should we go? And I think you and Fred made a good point about, does this bring more value to people outside your organization? And that's totally true. Is by letting the public come in and provide more funds and get equity and trade stock within the company, that provides a lot more resources to the general public to leverage the growth and the expectations and kind of the delivery of the product, which I think is great. So something that's gonna really affect probably the public markets here, and already has, is the election. And so, Nick, I know we've really kind of held off talking about this election topic because just that's what everyone's talking about, right? And so we've been wanting to talk about other things, but for this week, I think it's important to start easing into the conversation a little bit, and especially with some of these new conversations about the FCC and net neutrality. I just want to get your opinion on what's your thoughts of the election as an entrepreneur coming from a founder perspective. How do you think it's going to affect you and us as a community over the next 4 years?
It's a tough one, man. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the result I wanted. That it was a bit shocking. But I think as an entrepreneur, at some point, it's time for us to accept what has happened. And then now it's time to move on and really take ownership of what is happening right now and how we want to move forward. And quite frankly, it's interesting. It's interesting with markets. They're basically, they're it's crazy, and I think that's a but I think the unknowns are scary to people. And so we as entrepreneurs have an opportunity to continually create value by creating business, creating jobs, creating opportunity. And I think that in the end, that's what we got. And I don't know any other way to answer the question except accept it and move on.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I was really disappointed when it first came out. Shocked, the same reaction that everyone here in Washington, or a lot of people here in Washington had, a lot of people in the tech community had. And so my biggest fear right now is all this talk about net neutrality, right? Because it was a pretty big social movement that happened a couple years ago, and I think it started all with a big John Oliver piece, where John Oliver, I think he enticed like 4 million people to comment on this thread online to really join together to be proponents for net neutrality and make sure that these big companies didn't have an influence. And it's really scary that that could totally get ruined now. And I just hate, especially as a millennial, I hate that people who don't utilize the internet all that much are the ones trying to make the decision. I really hope that as this progresses, the millennials who didn't vote very well, I hope they at least come out to this issue, because this, I think, is one of the most impactful issues that really prevents growth, prevents freedom. The ability to access information online is so important and has really driven a lot of the growth of the country and our sector for the last 2 decades. And so to prevent that, so companies like Comcast, who we just about all hate, and Verizon and AT&T, if they really hold all the power, what's the difference of all this change that the country chose that we wanted from this president-elect? So that's something that I'm really scared about. But one thing Gary Vee said after Election Day, he said, if you're a real hustler, you won't let one man or woman ruin your dreams, right? And stop you from accomplishing the goals that you're driven to accomplish. And that really inspired me to say, like, yes, like, we're going to get through this. We can do it. Not one person creates all the jobs. It's local businesses that create all the jobs for everyone. So it's up to these entrepreneurs, these thinkers, these people who want to start companies to come up and really employ all those people, and do the ethical thing about how you choose to employ people, and kind of all those different standards I know we've talked about, and where you access your employees and who you're recruiting. But I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to keep creating businesses, to create those jobs, to give people more opportunities, more chances, hopefully. And then if you go IPO, then that creates even more companies, more jobs, more chances. It's a big circle. But I think it's really the entrepreneur that is the heart of America, and it's going to continue to be the heart of America. Those are the people that are going to create the jobs, not one person, sitting in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, damn right. And I believe that, look, unless our country is under more attack because of this, outside of that issue, I think in the end it's going to be more the same. Put your head down, working, and create more opportunity, more jobs. Interesting movement in the live streaming space. A new app, and it's called what's the name of it?
House Party.
House Party. I was going to say home for some reason, but House Party. And it's actually the issue. It's the difference between live streaming and live chilling. So do you think live chilling is a more appropriate use of live streaming, or do you think this is going to crash just as Meerkat did?
So I have some mixed feelings on it. I really like it. The whole live chilling thing, I think, is very unique. It actually provides an opportunity. I really like how they put, like, this is your third room, right? You have your living room where you spend with your family. You have your office where you spend with all your coworkers. But there's, especially with the new generation who are always on their phone, there's not as much like meeting and congregating in physical places. But what this is like a room that you can go and sit in, and then when your friends walk in, you guys can start your dialogue, but you can kind of digitally always be in the room or not be in the room. And I think this has a ton of potential. My big worry is how you gonna make money. Like, no one's gonna pay, $5 a month or whatever. I don't think when you launch these things free and people start using it, especially younger people, like, they're not gonna come back and pay for it. You have to provide an extreme amount of value for people to pay for it. But from my readings about, like, science fiction and where virtual reality is going, I think that's where the connection is. It's kind of like how we had AOL chat rooms a long time ago. That's starting to come back, and the video chat is the first one. But I think that once the virtual reality and augmented reality start to pick up, I think having these digital rooms that you can walk in and meet people and converse are very likely to happen. I think that's a great place. I mean, it'd be amazing to go to one of these tech meetup events and it just be all virtual, right? And we just sit on our couch, plug in, and then we can go around and physically meet people, shake hands, put face to the name, do kind of all that switching. I think that'd be amazing. And so I think it's got a lot of potential, especially as VR catches up and we have the opportunity to meet people in person. But I'm worried about revenue models, and is it too far ahead for where we are with virtual reality. But Nick,
Yeah,
what do you think?
those are good points, man. Clearly, revenue model is a question and an issue, but I also think, you know, when you look at, I'm just not convinced yet if live streaming, like, okay, I'm going to click on go live and followers are going to watch for some reason or another. It seems like you're right, where you're tying in the fact that people are chilling together, hanging out, and they're like they're sharing a moment. That might be the answer here, instead of like randos like clicking your video and seeing what you're doing. You know?
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see the evolution of this. I'm not necessarily sure what the potential is here. They're probably just going to get acquired for you know, some millions. I don't see it being a dollar company.
Yeah, I agree. And they're kind of in a tough spot because this is for those people who don't know about House Party. Their branding's great. Like, I really like the logo on their app on your phone is a red Solo cup, which I just thought was like just a genius idea. It fits the branding really well, matches with the demographic they're going for. But this is a pivot from the Meerkat app, and Meerkat was actually like one of the first mainstream live streaming apps that was out there. But then Periscope came on the scene right around the same time, and I believe it was Twitter who bought Periscope. And once that happened, I'm not really sure why Meerkat didn't get acquired somewhere, but it fell off the face of the earth, and this is what they pivoted to. And so props to them for figuring something out and pivoting Meerkat, which had a lot of success, and now having a million daily active users that quickly is very impressive. But they're going to have a lot of the same problems, right? That they had before. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. Is it going to be a Pokemon thing, right, where they got a lot of kids playing now, but then it kind of just fizzles out, or are they going to be able to iterate and make it more unique and creative and get people to keep coming back and hanging out in this room? Well, it's going to be very interesting. But on to the next topic. So pretty much since we started this show, one of our most hated words in the industry is unicorn, right? I know last week we hated on it quite a bit with the whole concept of it's overrated. It's companies that are valued at $1 billion but aren't worth anything, not making any money. And so here, David Coates, who's a co-founder at, I believe it's Correlation VC, and he wrote an article called Unicorns Are Overrated, Triple Crowns Are Better. And so, Nick, I want you to kind of go in and kind of explain about what you like about this concept of Triple Crown. And what is Triple Crown, I guess?
Yeah, if you listened to last week, you know that I really hate the word unicorns, just for various reasons. But we're gonna look at what he has coined the term triple crowns. Three things. One, a realized a cash on cash multiple of at least 10x. Realize an internal return, internal rate of return at least 100%. And then lastly, we invested at least $1 million. And so basically, look at those three. He identified that these are even rarer, and they're more valuable from the standpoint of the internal investor as well as founders. And I agree. I agree that it's better evaluation of the success of a company rather than just are they valued at $1 billion. Valued at $1 billion. But have so diluted internal like founding team as well as investors just because like they're at Series 8, investment round that it's bullshit. Just simply a number valuing the company $1 billion. So what they're saying here is let's dive deeper into the economics of the company, the economics of the cap table, the ownership, and realizing that this specific company actually performed well, had an incredible return. So, a company could be sold for $200 million, but if there was $125 million invested in, that's a hell of a return.
Yes, it is.
And that's what we're pointing at here. So I think he makes a really good point. And if we can just put away with unicorn, and quite frankly, put away with brown, let's just call a company a successful company or not. Those are the things that I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, I totally agree. Let's just dump all of the hype, right? Because that's all it is hype. And maybe that all comes from the media circus that we live in and social media and the hashtags right? And just trying to label everything. I think that's a lot where these concepts come from. But I do like the Triple Crown a little bit more. I don't love the name so much, but you know, it's just he had to take another horse thing, didn't he? With the Triple Crown. But at least the Triple Crown, what it says is, I don't understand why raising $1 million has to be a thing. I guess that ends up making, right, if they invested 20,000 and they're 10x, they're only at 200,000. So they're not huge companies either. So maybe that's why there's $1 million. But at least these companies are making money, right? The original investors have more or less broken even. They're at 10x. They've gotten to the scale where everyone who's got money is got investment in there is cashing out big time. I really think that's kind of, is this a company that people are going to cash out on? Is really what it comes down to. And so I do like that number shows that a little bit more here, and kind of, we'll give that company some credit for taking that money and actually giving a return to that investor, which is better than, I would say, most unicorns. Most unicorns aren't going to bring the return. And so it's good, but I'm on deck with you. Let's just drop the whole labeling thing. And it would be nice if there was, I guess that IRR is one of the closer numbers, but it would be great if we just had a scale of profitability and is it a successful business, right? On a scale of 0.0 to 10.0, if we could rate companies on a scale like that about their present value, I think that'd be a really useful number to have. And they're an 8.8, you should invest in them, kind of thing. Yeah, that would be nice.
That's a really good point. And one thing I want to point out is they did an entire research. They grouped together tens of thousands of companies that they put into this research, and of the number of unicorns over the last decade, almost three-quarters of all Triple Crowns were not unicorns. What that means there are a ton of healthy, strong return companies that actually quote in the group. And yet you're not paying attention to that. Those companies they're never identified as firms. They didn't reach the $1 billion valuation.
Mm-hmm.
So what I love about doing is they're diving deeper into the data and illustrating that, hey, founders, build successful, healthy companies. Don't just pay attention to and try to strive to be
Exactly. Am I up or are you up? Kind of lost ourselves there.
I am up.
Okay.
The next topic we have here comes from a Medium post. This woman actually about a year ago started a company called Mini. I believe it's Mini. And she was writing on how to start a company in free time. And I'm going to correct myself here. It's Winnie, not Mini. It connects parents with the local information they need most. Basically, finding the right sitter. And so she writes about how she actually quit her job, started her company, found out her husband had cancer about the same time. And she illustrates how she had lived no time at all to be able to start this company and actually end up raising more than $1 million, which is pretty amazing. So I guess to you, Connor, how or what are the steps to start a company in your free time or when you have very little?
It's hard. It's really hard. I think this article kind of makes it sound like it's easier than it actually is. And to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, because I'm actually right in this position right now where I'm trying to start actually a couple different things, and I have my full-time job on the side. And yeah, it comes into, all right, you're waking up an hour or 2 hours earlier, and you're working 1 to 2 hours more every single evening. The hardest part for me, kind of outside this article, is really the time management. I know one point she has is create your task list, but I still need to find something that I can jump. I don't do well blending them all, right? I can't go 10 minutes working on one, 10 minutes on the other, and bounce back and forth. I really want to put dedicated blocks of time, 3 hours, where I can work on one project, really focus, get in the flow, take a break, reset, jump into the other project for 3 hours, get into the flow, do what I need to accomplish, and kind of move on from there. And so that, I think, the time management and scheduling and making task lists is quite the most important. What I don't like here is she says, just say no to grabbing coffee, but then 2 points later, she wants you to not go alone and ask for actionable help. And I think those end up being synonymous. It's hard to ask other people for coffee and ask for their help if you're not providing help on the other side. But we do waste a lot of time. I think you and I both know, like, we've taken plenty of coffee meetings or breakfast meetings, lunch meetings, whatever it is, with people who want to ask us questions or need our help in some type of way. And unfortunately, we have to be a little bit more selfish when we're in this state because we're trying to work on multiple projects, that it's hard to go out of your way to help other people. And so there is a lot of wasted time, but I think it's very important to meet with other entrepreneurs, get coffee with them, figure out what their problems are, try to help other people, because in the long run, those helpful moments are going to reciprocate themselves and come back to you and provide value down in the future. So I try to rationalize helping other people with, hopefully this is an investment in our relationship and this will come and benefit me later, but I'm going to kind of put it out there to begin with. So that was my only problem here, but it's a lot easier said than done. And I'm experiencing that a lot now. It's all about time management, task management, and executing at the moments that you need to execute.
Absolutely. And I'll jump in and add, you have to focus your time, and you have to be very diligent in what you do and how you do it. I had a little bit of issue with some of her, mentions on don't take any coffee meetings. Well, I don't know. I don't know what happens in San Francisco, but over here you don't need to overbook yourself every day, but I think it's a good thing to keep out there, understand what other people are doing, and maybe it's part of your recruiting process to meet a lot of people. I don't know. But one thing that jumped out at me, what she said was, the last one was, force yourself to do things imperfectly. And I totally agree. And I think the moment a founder can kind of let go with perfection, just say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And it probably is not going to be perfect, but I'm going to get the ball rolling and I can correct mistakes later. Your best friend as you start your next company, as you're really, really busy, is just momentum. That's your best friend. And so do things imperfectly, be okay with that. Know that it's an iterative process. That's how you get going. And I mean, I've learned that where it's easy to be this perfectionist. You're like, oh no. And she mentions that she's like, I'm writing this post. It's not the greatest. I'm just going to push publish. And that's great. So write that email, clearly make sure it's well, but push send, or make that phone call, or go talk to that customer. Just go do the things you need. Do the things to be perfect. You'll learn.
Yeah. And I think that's a key point for anyone in a startup. Whether you have one company or you got 10 companies, is, you can't be afraid, especially of the small failures, right? Or embarrassing yourself for spelling errors and silly things like that. Because in the end, if you don't get it out there at all, then you're really not going to improve. You're never going to learn. And so, yeah, I like how you finish that up about, like, just push send, get it off the plate, finish the task, and move on, and don't get too caught up in the insignificant details. Obviously, there are important details that need to put in the time. But yeah, just get going, right? And that's usually the hardest part for people. Great. So moving on to the next topic, it comes from a series of articles by an author from Medium named Eric Elliott, and he's mostly an engineer, but he has written two-part article of why native apps really are doomed. Excuse me. And so, Nick, my question to you related to the apps, are related to the Medium post, do you think native apps are doomed, and is there any future for startups and businesses to create a standalone app for themselves and compete within the App Store?
First answer, yes. I think native apps, we're at peak native app. You know what that means? You know what that means is it's so busy trying to launch a product that's specifically an app discovered in the App Store is it's close to impossible. It's just it is. And what he's saying here is, your job as you build the product is actually thinking about how you're discovered, how your users use you, where the costs or like the pricing structure and where your revenue comes from and who you split it with.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a concept here that he's rolling out. He's talking about progressive web apps, which are basically browser experience, but they're heightened and to the point where it feels like it's a native app. And you're not beholden to the iOS or Android ecosystem, the app stores. You basically have a website, but it's heightened to an experience like a native app. And so he uses the acronym PWA, but it's progressive web apps. And that experience, just for a little bit of detail, you can launch your website or your application in a progressive web app. It actually provides a notification when you're viewing it as a user. You can actually touch the button and you can put that icon on your device so it actually looks like an app. But it runs offline. It runs just like a native app. But you don't have to go to the browser and search the URL every time. And that's great. And that's actually what we're doing with one of the projects I'm working on, which is a daily sports prediction. We are looking at not just an app, but a holistic experience that allows you to touch the product without having to download another app. And one thing in his article that he touches on, look, they've established it takes 6 clicks to install a native app. With each click, you lose about 20% of those users. And then not only that, but on average, there's a small percentage of people that download 3 apps a month, but the majority of people in the world don't download any apps every month. So how the hell do you think you discover it? That's the problem. And so I believe this is the way of the future in terms of the next products that are rolled out, looking at other ways product out there, not apps.
Yeah, I totally agree. And based off some of the experiences I've heard from some of the investors that I listen to, someone who's been starting to become really outspoken about it is Jason Calacanis in This Week in Startups, because he has his company, Inside, right? And he launched the Inside app, and he was just realizing how much money it was costing him to just keep it up to date, and then to launch it, and then to market it, right? It's just hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, just to keep it living. And then to market it, right? Like the only ones who are being very successful are these big games, right? The Clash of Clans and the Counter-Strikes or Airstrike, whatever it is. And, they're paying millions of dollars every month just to keep those eyeballs on there. And so, yeah, it's really a tough space to be. And when an average person downloads 0 apps, that's a really, really tough place. And creating things from the web browser into an app is actually fairly simple, even for lesser companies. If you have a WordPress website and you wanted it to be an app, there are cheap plugins that almost automatically convert your mobile experience into an app, and it could be a clickable button that just opens up the web browser, and that's not a huge undertaking to roll out if you have a WordPress website. So they're definitely attainable. I think this is the future. I think he's totally right that people are wasting millions and millions of dollars on trying to create a native app experience. I'm guilty of that. I work for a startup that's in the same thing, but I think content's still king, right? How you market it, where you put yourself out in other places is really how you drive traffic to get those downloads. So no matter if it's a web app or a native app, you still need to figure out how you're going to drive traffic, how you're going to get the eyeballs, and you need to be creating something outside of that environment to really be driving that traffic and the engagement so you can get the referrals and say, hey, like there's this really cool company, they have an app, and you can find them here, if you want a little sample of what they're doing. But yeah, I'm fully on board that the native app is not necessarily on its way out anytime soon, but it's going to struggle. And this article, maybe it was the first article, was talking about how Steve Jobs never wanted an app store. That this is how he wanted it, is it to be all web-based apps and not have this crazy competition and a monopoly like the Play Store and Android store have, where they dominate who gets in, who gets out, who gets marketed, who's the favorite, who's top on the charts. That's just not the open concept that the rest of the internet has. And so I think as those platforms dwindle a little bit, we'll start seeing more of these web apps, and I think more successful companies will start being that way.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the opportunity to ask me the last question.
Yes. So this last weekend, Nick last Friday, hosted his monthly event series called Feature Friday. And so, Nick, tell us, what is Feature Friday and what are you going to do about it? How are you going to grow it?
Yeah, hey, thanks for the question, Connor. Feature Friday is a really cool event that we do here in Seattle. And, we started about 2.5 years ago, just said, hey, why don't we throw a party, throw an event for the community. But the unique thing is it is actually also a competition. And so each month, we're now hitting about 120, 150 people show up. It's on a Friday, it's on the evening, it's during the happy hour, and but during that month, I handpick 5 companies to come up and pitch, and they are talking, what is their value proposition, what is their vision, and the unique thing is they only have a minute and a half, 99 seconds to talk. The audience has to ask question and answer. But then after those 5 talk, the coolest thing is the audience actually votes my favorite. So you end up having a winner that comes out of this event that literally hundreds of people are just totally enjoying. It's like happy hour, so it's for you the plans you typically have for Friday. And it's awesome. It's been good. The coolest thing is being actually identified. The big announcement is that we are merging Founders Live and Feature Friday. Those are coming together. We're going to start opening new cities that will have these local events that celebrate talent and creativity in that unique city, and it will feed all back into Founders Live. And more in that, we are going to then start involving what the prizes are going to be. It might end up being some investment or some sort of money that is allocated to the winners, but we're going to start seeing this event happen all around the country, rolling that out over to.
Awesome. I cannot wait, Nick. I'm really excited. Do you have any cities in mind that you can hint to us?
We're looking at some on the West Coast for, just since we're over here, probably Portland, probably LA, probably, looking at, Dallas, possibly San Francisco. But we're definitely very focused on providing opportunity to other cities around the country. They don't have to be hubs, and I think that's the most important thing. But I'm going to what from you've attended many of them. What stood out to you as the unique aspect of it, and what do you think other communities will grab on?
Well, what I've struggled with at events that aren't Feature Friday is really the networking aspect. I think it's always kind of awkward. It's a lot of times like everyone wants to talk about themselves, right? It's kind of like, I'm going to ask you what you do and not pay attention and wait for my chance to talk. And I think at Feature Friday, because of the platform and there's being other companies and kind of how they come in, it provides more opportunities to talk about broader topics where it's just not like, oh, I do this, you do this, like I'm moving on to the next person. It's really like, oh, what'd you think about that pitch? Or who'd you vote for, right? Why did you like that company? Do you see any problems with these? I think it creates more of a dialogue between everyone who's there to talk about those companies and really build on other topics other than what do you do, what do I do? Because I just don't think that's that helpful, in my opinion, right? Just to be pitching other entrepreneurs over and over and over again, you don't really like solve the problems that you need help on. And so by learning from other people, it usually is a good benefit from that event. And I've had a lot of success with that as well. And just, yeah, it's a unique community. I think it's a good way. I think we really struggle here in Seattle to get like-minded entrepreneurs in the same place to talk about ideas. And Feature Friday does that really well.
That's great to hear, and I really appreciate the thoughts and kind of the angle that you took there. And it'll be interesting to see as new cities open up, what is their unique angle on the event. And I just keep coming back to, look, it's a celebration of talent and creativity. And here in Seattle, that tends to be businesses like startups, technology. But that might not be the case in other communities.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing is what we're realizing is the local experience and the physical meeting can feed into what we're doing here on Founders Live. And over time, there will be in many cities, there will be these winners that emerge every month that will get discovered and have distribution to many of the other people that are on this platform that might not have ever heard about that startup or that company. That's the coolest thing, right? So
certainly,
we're really excited about it. And so, yeah, I would just encourage everyone to keep your eyes open, and anyone in another city that might be a kick-ass MC, someone that loves to be in front of a crowd, let us know.
Yeah, so is that someone you're looking for? If someone finds us from other cities here, I assume you're looking for someone that's kind of like yourself, a connector, right? Someone who knows a lot what's going on within their industry, within the startup space.
Yep, definitely.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Nick, you got any other exciting news for us?
Nope, just hoping for a Sounders win. That's all we're looking for tonight.
Well, that is it for us. Thank you for finding us at Straightup Startups. It is Tuesday, November 22nd. We are back online next Tuesday, probably in the evening at our normal time. If you want to connect with us, find us at founderslive.com. Hit up Nick or myself, Connor. If you want to find me specifically, Find Me in Seattle is where I spend all my time now. Nick, I believe it's at jnickhughes on Twitter.
Yep.
But founderslive.com is really where you want to be, right?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching us. Nick, I'll see you next week.
Peace.
See ya.